Hi, I'm Karen Rice and welcome to this watercolour techniques with acrylic inks tutorial. I'll also be using traditional acrylic painting techniques as well. So, shall we get started? For a full list of all the materials I'm using in this demonstration and a link for the photograph can be found in the description below. I'm using acrylic paper and I put some washi tape around the edge so it'll create a nice white border at the end of the painting. I'm just sketching in now with a watercolour pencil, the cliffs, the horizon line, and just keeping everything really simple. I'm using the washi tape as well to create a straight horizon line. It's quite tricky sometimes to keep a horizon line nice and straight. So that's one way of doing it. I'm wetting the sky area now. And all over the sky, you can see the watercolour pencils have bled a little bit. This is Sepia acrylic ink. I'm just drizzling that in wet. And this is processed cyan. I'm doing exactly the same thing, working wet in wet, just like you would do with watercolour paint. And acrylic inks allow you to dilute them, so it's great fun. As you can see here, I'm tilting to create some really lovely special effects. You can stop this anytime when you like something in your painting. If you paint along with this, it's just great fun. And I'm just using the brush there just to get the paint moving a little bit, or the ink, because it got a little bit stuck. Now this is black acrylic ink. It's quite strong, so you don't need too much if you're going to use it. And I'm just put it at the top of the sky area and tilting, and look at that. It's got a lot of drama, this has, as does the photograph. So I'm trying to emulate that a little bit, but also just have fun tilting here as you would do in a watercolor painting, to create these lovely atmospheric effects in the sky. You saw that I used my spritzer bottle to dilute the paint and get it moving a little bit more. There's a little patch up there, the blue and the black, they didn't blend very well. So I'm just spritzing it again with the spritzer bottle just to get everything moving and tilting. Don't worry about it going over your mountains, because I'm going to be painting with acrylic paint over those. And what's great, you can actually start again. So I'm using some of the black acrylic ink, wet into wet, lots of it there. Look at that pouring down. And it's actually just quite nice just to paint this, no matter what your painting looks like at the end. It's just lovely and therapeutic to actually paint and watch the process of the painting here. So I'm tilting here to the right just to get things moving. And you can see the ink running down into the sky there as well. I'm using my pipette to add more water just to create sort of different sort of effects, and also to dilute the ink to create a little bit more light as well. And it's just so much fun to do. You do need to have lots of paper towels or old rags or something to collect all the ink there. So I'm going to leave the sky there for the moment. I'm wetting the foreground. I'm using some of the processed cyan, and I'm going to add a little bit of black to it. I'm using my large flat brush here and painting the foreground there. It's so dark, isn't it, in the bottom right hand corner? So don't be afraid of the dark. Again, this is wet in wet, just like watercolor painting, so it creates some lovely atmospheric effects. I'm adding and drizzling a little bit of the blue in there as well, and blending with my brush straight on to the paper there. I'm painting the sea in the background as well, just using more of the blue with a touch of the black diluted. It's almost a sea green colour then. I'm using the tip of my brush. It's only really two colours I've used here so far, except for the sepia in the sky, and I've just sprinkled a little bit of table salt onto the wet surface in the foreground. Look at that already. The salt is lifting off the paint there and creating some lovely light textures. You saw I used my plastic card to put the paint on, but it was a bit dry. So what I'm doing is I'm wetting the surface of the cliffs here with a large flat brush. And I'm going to use my plastic palette knife, but you could use the plastic card still. It's just a bit messy. And I'm painting the a little bit of violet oxide, but you can use any brown, a little bit of the blue and the blacks. They're very dark, these cliffs here, very imposing. So I'm just sort of painting this on with my plastic palette knife here, wet into wet. I've used a little bit of white acrylic paint mixed with the blue there and a touch of the brown just to paint those distant mountains. And I'm using a little bit of the white and the blue just to create sort of more of a cooler colour in this middle distant cliff here. I quite like the cliffs here. They've got little touches of light ochre sort of colour, and I'm going to sort of paint that on, almost wet into wet here. Quite creamy now, the acrylic paint, so it's more traditional acrylic style painting, and just a little bit of white highlights here as well. So it's quite nice to combine the two techniques, the watercolour techniques, with the traditional acrylic style painting using the palette knife here. Look at that foreground. It looks amazing with the salt there, and this works so well with watercolor painting as well. I'm just sort of painting some marks here, just sort of finessing these cliff tops. I love this bit, the reveal, the big reveal. The painting has dried and I'm just removing the washi tape carefully and adding a very dilute blue with a little tiny touch of black there to grey it down with a flat synthetic brush there, leaving lots of white as well. Again, a little bit of a traditional watercolour technique. The paint's diluted, so it creates lots of light there as well. And I'm using a little bit of the black now with a touch of the blue and just sort of softening in this sort of slightly darker tone. Again, watercolour technique here, sort of almost glazing these darks on here. So a little bit of wet in wet and a touch of wet on dry as well. I'm using the side of my brush here along the shoreline with a touch of the blue, touch of the black there, just building up the detail here. I'm using a little bit of black here with a touch of the oxide colour. You can use any brown just to build up a few more darks again here in this middle distant mountain as well, and diluting as well and glazing as you would in watercolour. So it's quite nice to combine both techniques, painting a little bit of white now on the shore using kind of a dry brush technique that you would use for watercolour. So I'm using the side of my brush to create sort of texture and light there. With the acrylic titanium white. I'm also using the tip of my brush here just to create a little bit of white, smaller marks in the distance to create depth in your painting. I felt my sky needed a little bit more light, so I'm added a little bit of the blue and the white together, the white titanium and the blue acrylic ink. I'm using the side of my brush and just scumbling and scrubbing there over the top of that right hand mountain there to create some light, sort of also cloud coming down over, and I've used my paper towel there to lift off to create that illusion. I'm painting a little bit more light white clouds on the horizon there using just the white titanium paint and diluting again as you would in watercolor. And I like that light contrast in the sky against those dark imposing cliffs. I'm using a sponge here just to sponge on white titanium paint, wet on dry, quite creamy as well. So it really lifts, and this is the wave hitting and crashing against this rock in the foreground there. And I'm actually printing over the cliffs there as well. So it really sort of creates a little bit of drama here. And I'm pressing very gently with this sponge. I'm also tapping very lightly on the surf in the foreground there, just at the shoreline, just to create a little bit of light. And of course, a little spatter here to finish off. I'm using my liner brush to do so. And it just creates that spray from that wave crashing against the rock in the foreground. I'm not quite finished actually. I thought it'd be quite nice to use one last watercolor technique. I'm using the black acrylic ink with the blue, the cyan blue, diluted it, and I'm just glazing the foreground to create a little bit more dark. And I quite like the effect of going over the salt as well. So you've got that sort of light textured marks underneath. I'm carefully removing the washi tape now, and you can see there's a really nice white border. It's a lovely way of presenting your work, and also to see if you need to do any more to your painting. There's a little bit of a leakage there, but not too bad. So here is my finished painting. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it interesting, using watercolor techniques and acrylic inks in combination with traditional acrylic painting techniques, using acrylics straight from the tube using a palette knife. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for updates of my latest videos. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Happy painting. Bye for now.